We will get started here in about a minute. We'll give everybody till 3 o'clock and then we'll get started. Okay, so today we are talking about the ocean, and I have a fun little ocean layers experiment I'm going to show you guys here in a little bit. But before I do that, we are going to talk about the different ocean layers and some of the animals that live in them first. Okay, so we're going to start with our slideshow. Okay, so ocean layers. Okay, so scientists have divided the ocean into 5 main layers. These layers are known as zones, extended from the surface to the most extreme depths, where light can no longer penetrate. These deep zones are where some of the most bizarre and fascinating creatures in the sea can be found. As we dive deeper into these largely unexplored places, the temperature drops and the pressure increases at an astonishing rate. Well, I can't talk this today. Okay, so the first and deepest layer that we are going to talk about is the trench layer. So in the trench layer, this layer extends from 6,000 meters, which is about 19,686 feet, to the bottom of the deepest parts of the ocean. These areas are mostly found in deep water trenches and canyons. The deepest point in the ocean is located in the Mariana Trench off the coast of Japan, and at the deepest part of the ocean, it is 35,797 feet. The temperature of the water is just above freezing, and the pressure is an incredible 8 tons per square inch. In spite of the pressure and temperatures, life can still be found here. Invertebrates such as starfish and tube worms can live in these depths. So when we do our experiment here a little later, we will be using corn syrup for that layer. So our next layer is called the abyss layer. Okay, and it extends 4,000 meters, and that's about 13,124 feet, all the way to 6 meters, which is about 19,686 feet. The name comes from the Greek word meaning no bottom. The temperature is near freezing, and there is no light at all. Very few creatures can be found in these crushing depths. Most of these are invertebrates such as basket stars and tiny squids. And 3/4 of the ocean floor lies within this zone. So this is one of the biggest zones. Okay, and when we do our experiment, the layer that will show this zone will be dish soap. So next layer is the midnight layer. And this zone extends from 1,000 meters, which is about 3,281 feet down, to 4,000 meters, which is about 13,124 feet. Here, the only visible light is that produced by the creatures themselves. So the animals that live in this layer have to create their own light. And the water pressure at this depth is immense, reaching 5,850 pounds per square inch. In spite of the pressure, a surprisingly large number of creatures can be found here. Sperm whales can dive down deep to this level in search for the food that they eat, and most of the animals that live in these depths are black or red in color due to the lack of light. So a couple of the animals that live down there are this angular fish. So you see he has his own light on him. That is how he sees in that deep of water. And then we also have the possum shrimp. And when we do this layer, it'll be a layer of water for our experiment. Okay. Next, we have the twilight layer. The twilight layer extends from 200 meters, so 656 feet, to 1,000 meters, 3,281 feet. The light that penetrates to this depth is extremely faint. It is in this zone that we begin to see the twinkling lights of the bioluminescent creatures. A great diversity of strange and bizarre fishes can be found here. So we have the lanternfish that we can find in this area, and we also have the midwater jellyfish that we can find in this area. And then we have the sunlight layer. So known as the sunlight layer, it is known as the sunlight layer because this is where most of the visible light exists. With the light also comes heat though, and this heat is responsible for the wide range of temperatures that occur in this zone. So if you think about it, when the sun, like when it's really hot outside and the sun's shining really bright, the water's probably really, really warm. But when it's kind of in those colder months where the sun's not as bright, the water's probably not as warm. You guys know what that's like, I bet. And then some of the animals that live in this area are sea turtles and dolphins. So now, here is a picture of all the animals that you can find in these certain layers. So, we can find, so in the bottom layer, like I was talking about, you can see tube worms, leopard fish, sea cucumbers, and I had told you guys that like I said the other name. So this one is called the trench layer, but this is the big scientific word for it. I'm not going to try and pronounce it. I'll probably butcher it. But this is the big, long scientific name for it. And then this layer is what I call the abyss layer, and that's where you find the angular fish and a black swallower, and it's called the abyss layer. It's a little bit in the word there. And then this layer is considered the midnight layer, and you'll find your sea stars, your octopus, your viper fish, all that in this layer. And then in the next layer, in your twilight layer, you'll find cat shark, crabs, krill, squid. And then in the final layer, the very top layer, where most of the light hits, you'll find jellyfish, turtles, dolphins, big-eyed tuna, and blue whale. Now, let's see who was listening. So, how many ocean zones are there?
7.
5. There are 5 ocean zone layers. Who can remember all their names?
Midnight, twilight, the abyss, sunlight, and I forgot the rest.
Anybody remember the last one that she didn't say?
The midnight zone. The midnight zone.
You said that one. We're missing one more, and it starts with a T. Anybody else remember it?
Trench.
Trench. So we have 5 layers. We got trench, abyss, midnight, twilight, and sunlight. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we're going to go over this way where I have all of my supplies set up. And let's see, so you guys can see me better. We are going to make our ocean, okay? So I have a mason jar. That is one of the things you will need if you do this project at home. You need a mason jar, okay? So the first thing, see if you guys can see. Can you guys see all of my supplies down here? That's all the stuff you'll need. So we're gonna start. The first thing we need is 3/4 of a cup of corn syrup. So I'm gonna pour my corn syrup. Okay. There's 1/4. 3/4. 3/4. Okay. And then after you have 3/4 of corn syrup, you have to get black food coloring. If I can get this one. Okay, black food coloring, and you'll add just about a big drop of black food coloring, and then you gotta mix it up really good so that the black mixes into all of that. And this is the lowest layer, so this is where it gets no sunlight at all. It's so deep down in the very bottomy depths of the ocean that it gets no sunlight at all. So we want to make sure it's really black, and then you're gonna pour it into your mason jar. Really sticky too. Okay. And then after you get all of that, you will do 3/4 of Dawn dish soap. Just gonna open it, make it a little bit easier for myself. So you'll pour 3/4 of Dawn dish soap, and that goes right on top of your right on top of the first layer. That was the corn syrup and the black. So you'll use measuring cup. There's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So see, you can see how it's separated, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So you can see the really dark bottom layer, and then you can see kind of the little different color, and this is going to be considered our abyss layer. So that's our dish soap, okay? And then after that, you're going to do 3/4 of a cup of water. So I already measured out my water. And then you're going to add some blue food coloring, and you want to make sure it's really dark, so you might want to add a lot to make it super dark for this portion. And you're going to mix in all of that food coloring, make it a nice dark color, and then you'll pour that. So we got our mason jar. Yeah, hold it better so you guys can see the colors. Okay, so we got our dark layer, our dish soap layer. Now we're going to add in our water layer. Pour that in. See how it pours in. So it will take a second, but it will separate again, and you'll still be able to see the dark layer, and then kind of the dish soap layer, and then the water layer that we just added. And then and that's our midnight layer. The next layer is our twilight layer, and for that layer, you will use oil. So same as the other ones, you'll need 3/4 of a cup of oil. So there's 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we put our vegetable oil in, and as you can tell, you can still see how it's separating. We got our bottom layer, and then our next layer, and then so we got our trench, our abyss, our midnight, and then our twilight layer. And then the last layer you need is your sunlight layer, and that is 3/4 of a cup of rubbing alcohol. So pour that in. Pour that in here. And then you will add some blue. You don't have to add as much because this is the light layer. This is the sunlight layer where the light hits the most. So you can just add a little bit of blue. We don't need to make it super duper dark since this is the very, very top layer. You'll mix it up really good. All good and mixed up. And then you will add that to your mason jar. And we'll give it a second to separate again. But this is how you make the layers of the ocean in a mason jar. How cool is that? Got all those layers. Okay. So I have a few questions for you guys. Why didn't it all mix together and make one big giant color in one layer? Go ahead and answer if you know. Wyatt, go ahead.
All of them are.
What?
All of them have different weights. So like the one on the bottom is the heaviest and the one on the top is the lightest. So they all float on top of each other.
You're right. They have different levels of density, liquid density. So just like in our solids that we have, liquids are made up of a number of atoms and molecules. And in some liquids, these atoms and molecules are packed so tightly together that it results in them being a very heavy liquid. So that's why our corn syrup is at the bottom, because it is the heaviest liquid that we use today. So we got our corn syrup is heavy, and then after corn syrup, our dish soap was the next heaviest layer. And then we had water, then there was the vegetable oil in here, and then we had the rubbing alcohol layer. So it all depends on the density, and they're not all the same in density. So see, because you can still see it's kind of separated a little bit. But that is our science experiment for the day.
That was amazing.
Did you guys like that science experiment?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's something easy you guys can do at home if you have those ingredients at home. And I will get this video uploaded to the YouTube page. And if you're subscribed or you watch our YouTube videos on our channel, in every single slide I showed you guys, it tells you how much you need of each of these ingredients to make your own little ocean at home. And if you want, I've even seen some like pictures and stuff where they even put animals in it to show the different animals that live in those layers.
Yeah, that's what we have soda.
Yep, that's what you showed me yesterday. So next week we will be doing I believe it's engineering is our next topic. Let's see. Yep, next week is Be an Engineer. So we'll be talking all about engineering and all that fun stuff that goes with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the Zoo Week. You learned a lot of good facts that maybe you didn't know about certain animals, and you enjoyed some of the science experiments I did this week. I hope you tried some at home yourself. But I will let you go for the afternoon. I hope you have an amazing weekend, and I hope to see you back on Monday.
Bye.
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 Bye.